We should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag.
You know how they say never meet your heroes? Well, apparently for Donald Trump, that should extend to never listen to your heroes either. Because a resurfaced video of the Republican hero, the GOAT, according to conservatives Ronald Reagan, reveals how he is likely rolling in his grave.
We too often talk about trade while using the vocabulary of war.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already.
No, there are no tariffs.
Now granted, Reagan was probably already spinning like one of those gyro rotisseries from Trump's xenophobic bastardization of his own Make America Great Again movement, but after the complete idiocracy of Trump's war on trade, which we'll break down in this video, Reagan is now spinning more like a tornado. And it is ironic, infuriating, and frankly dystopian how spot on in describing Trump's economic policies Reagan's dire warning in this video from decades ago is. And while you're watching it, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like on the video and subscribing to show not everyone in the world has an understanding of economics as infantile as a toddler that doesn't know how to share, we'd greatly appreciate it, and let's dive in.
In war, for one side to win, the other must lose. But commerce is not warfare. Trade is an economic alliance that benefits both countries. There are no losers, only winners, and trade helps strengthen the free world.
Right, it's just like Neil Young famously saying, trade helps strengthen the free world. So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that a dictatorial demagogue who's basically Putin's bitch and is hell-bent on making the White House an extension of the Kremlin would strive to enact policies on his first day that hurt the US and its allies economically while masquerading said policies as a way to promote domestic manufacturing and make other countries pay the price, which, and I hate to have to say this for the millionth time, is not the case.
In a move as dumb as it was predictable, Trump took to Truth Social, writing, "On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long-simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price." Here's the deal. Something I've said 100 times before the election, and something I'll apparently have to say 100 times now that the election's over. Tariffs are a tax on the consumer. This is not a hit to Canada or Mexico. It is a hit for American consumers who buy whatever it is that are being imported from Canada or Mexico.
Yeah, and apparently that is some really dumb but effective Russian propaganda on Trump's part, especially when you consider this image of every state's biggest import trading partner, and you start to see a pretty interesting pattern. Almost every single state that voted for Trump's biggest import trading partner is either China, Canada, or Mexico. And while Chinese tariffs do have some merit because they are retaliatory against dishonest Chinese economic practices like stealing trade secrets or undercutting the prices of manufacturing by exploiting their labor force, the attacks against our closest allies and trading partners of Canada and Mexico will only hurt the US. But on top of that, even the Chinese tariffs aren't working.
And a special group of people, the farmers. Nobody's done for farmers what I've done.
60% of our exports were going to China. Trade wars started that effectively lost soybean, corn, took a big hit. I mean, it really, and all farmers in the whole country were affected, and especially those that grow a lot of row crops in West Tennessee.
China's exports to the Global South and BRICS countries in March reached a seasonally adjusted annual rate of $1.6 trillion a year. That's nearly 4 times China's exports to the United States and more than the combined total of China's exports to the United States, Europe, and Japan, which reached a seasonally adjusted annual rate of $1.38 trillion in March. What does this mean? How do you punish China? China has moved on. It has expanded, it is adjusted, it's prepared to deal with us on a far less advantageous plane than the one we previously enjoyed.
Yet today, protectionism is being used by some American politicians as a cheap form of nationalism, a fig leaf for those unwilling to maintain America's military strength and who lack the resolve to stand up to real enemies, countries that would use violence against us or our allies.
President Putin was very, very strong.
He even called me brilliant, isn't that nice?
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
Kim Jong-un, he really has been very open, I think very honorable.
He's the boss. It's incredible. He wiped out the uncle, he wiped out this one, that one, and then we fell in love. I like the Saudis, they're very nice. I make a lot of money with them. They buy all sorts of my stuff, all kinds of toys from Trump. They pay me millions and hundreds of millions. And I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me, they spend 40 million, 50 million. We are with Saudi Arabia, we're staying with Saudi Arabia. We've become very good friends.
In war, for one side to win, the other must lose. But commerce is not warfare. Trade is an economic alliance that benefits both countries. There are no losers, only winners.
Where do you think that most of our fruits and vegetables come from? Take a look at this chart that shows the reality of where our vegetables actually come from. See all that green? Those are our imports from Mexico. See all the red? Those are our imports from Canada. That is 15 billion pounds just from our neighbors to the north and south alone. Tariffs are not going to impact Mexico or Canada. They are going to be passed on to the importing companies, and those companies will offset those higher costs by raising their prices to the end users. We are the end users.
It must be hard for you to, spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong. It'll have a negative, it will have, I'll go a step further. If you don't do this, this country has no chance.
But okay, let's follow through on Trump's logic here. Maybe he's hoping to spur manufacturing right here in the U.S. Maybe he hopes it'll jumpstart our agriculture industry and offset all of that, all of those high prices from other countries. You know what we're going to need a lot of? Workers. And yet, what's Trump's plan for the people who actually compose the vast majority of agriculture workers? Well, he's looking to deport them. In other words, Trump is going to make our vegetables more expensive because of this misguided notion that tariffs are the answer here, at the exact time that he's seeking to expel our labor force that could actually pick up the slack right here at home. Masterful gambit, Donald. Masterful gambit. And it's not just food. Expect gas prices to surge, particularly in the Midwest, when a 25% tariff is slapped onto all Canadian oil supplies. According to Patrick DeHaan, the country's best-known gas analyst, refiners in the Great Lakes, Rockies, and Midwest rely on Canadian heavy crude oil for feedstock to refine. If these millions of barrels are tariffed at 25%, that's going to basically mandate refiners pay a lot more for feed. Guess who pays? End users, consumers. And that's if Canada doesn't respond by cutting oil exports to the US, which is definitely possible if both countries insist on a back and forth of shooting themselves in the foot.
But not only are Trump's tariff concepts that he knows oh so much about shooting ourselves in the foot, they are also a further exacerbation of a problem he started with regards to inflation.
I'll tell you exactly when the very first kernel of inflation was set. And that was in April of 2020. It was right at the early days of the pandemic. The gas prices were $1.87. The oil companies went to Donald Trump and said, we are getting crushed with gas prices at $1.87. Please go to Saudi Arabia and your friend MBS. Please go to Russia and your friend Vladimir Putin and ask them to reduce production. So he had a choice to make. Does he help his oil company cronies, or does he help keep gas prices low? You already know what he did. He went to his he went to support his oil company cronies, went to MBS and Putin and said, please reduce production. That was the day inflation started. And you can track minute by minute, hour by hour, month by month, year by year, quarter by quarter, that as long as that agreement was in place up until 2022, gas prices kept on going up. The minute that agreement came out and production changed, gas prices started going down and you saw inflation go down. So you can take all you want and blame it on the Biden administration, but it started with Donald Trump.
So yet again, he kowtowed to Saudi Arabia and Russia and started the inflationary spike and the increase in gas prices that MAGA loves to blame on Biden in order to help his oil cronies and members of BRIC countries. He is not doing this for the American people. And as Reagan said himself in the capstone to the video we started with,
we should beware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weakening our economy, our national security, and the entire free world. all while cynically waving the American flag.
Trump sits cynically waving the American flag, and MAGA believes his bullshit that he stands for them and for America and not his crony allies in Russia, Saudi Arabia, and even China, who have made him plenty rich.
China paid me hundreds of billions of dollars.
So as much as I hate to say this as a liberal, maybe we should listen to the warning of Ronald Reagan about what Trump is about to do to the U.S. economy. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you all in the next one.